They fined me $900 for unauthorized lighting and claimed emergency access to my porch. So I checked the filings. 3 days later, I found a clause that made their entire security contract void. I just needed one notarized page. Welcome to HOA Karma. I'm Mike Randall, 37, municipal systems engineer from Denton, Texas. I build stormwater controls, but this story isn't about pipes. It's about power. My HOA thought they ran the block. I thought otherwise. And if you're watching from anywhere in the U.S., tell me where, because these associations have crept into almost every zip code now. The first notice came in a manila envelope, not the usual pastel green they use for parking violations. I knew it was serious the moment I saw a compliance officer typed where neighborly reminder should have been. Lighting infraction, Section 8.2, non-standard exterior fixtures. My only sin? A motion sensor porch light from Home Depot. They said it was visually disruptive. What they didn't know, I keep copies of every city permit in a fireproof box behind my water heater. I filed a polite appeal. 2 days later, a black SUV idled outside my house at 10:17 p.m. My camera caught them, 2 men in tactical style vests marked HOA enforcement. They flashed badges that weren't police issue. The next morning, they left a notice of attempted inspection, taped crooked on my door. My neighbor, Carla, saw them too. She's a retired court clerk with a silver thermos always in hand. "Those aren't cops," she said. "That's impersonation, Mike." Still, I wanted proof. I drove to City Hall. The records clerk, a quiet guy named Devin with ink on his cuffs, handed me a binder so thick the ring snapped when I opened it. Inside, every permit tied to our HOA's so-called security contractor. Their registration expired 18 months ago. The HOA president, a man named Ken Drummond, renewed the contract anyway, using digital signatures from board members who'd already resigned. That's when I realized this wasn't petty. It was structural. I started logging every incident, time-stamped photos, audio notes, dates, names, copies of envelopes. If they want to play by the book, I'd bring a bigger book. By the end of the week, 3 more neighbors reported late-night checks. Ken told the community Facebook page it was routine verification. Routine doesn't happen with tinted SUVs and fake shields. Knowledge nugget number 1. In Texas, impersonating a peace officer, even under HOA direction, triggers Penal Code Section 37.12. Each act can carry up to a year in county jail. I didn't confront them yet. I want to know how deep the rot went. The board's next meeting was posted for Thursday, 7 p.m., Community Center Room B. I marked it on my wall calendar with a red circle. But before that meeting, I needed leverage, something more than anger. 3 houses down, retired engineer named Hal offered coffee and a tip. They leased that SUV, he said. Fleet credit under the HOA's liability policy. If that policy lapses, the vehicle can't legally be used for enforcement. I checked the insurer's public filings. Renewal date, May 31st. Today was the 12th. 19 days until their coverage evaporated. That night, I printed every document, slipped them into a gray binder, and wrote one word on the spine. Timeline. I didn't know then that binder would end up on a police sergeant's desk before the month was out. But first, the HOA would send those officers to my porch one more time, and this time, I'd be ready. They came back on a Tuesday, right before sunset. I heard the gravel crunch under their boots, that careful rhythm of men rehearsing authority. The porch light clicked on by itself. Funny how a $39 motion sensor suddenly felt like a searchlight. I stepped out before they could knock. "Evening," I said. "You boys got a warrant this time?" The taller one's badge read Security Compliance Officer. Thin laminate, not a single state seal. "Sir, we're conducting an HOA safety check," he said. "We receive reports of a non-conforming exterior fixture." "Then file it in writing," I said, and hit record on my phone. Texas is a one-party consent state. I made sure the timestamp and coordinates were visible. His partner shifted uneasily. "You can't record HOA enforcement," he muttered. "You're not HOA enforcement," I replied. You're two men on my property without lawful purpose. That was when Kent, the HOA president, appeared at the curb, arms folded, smirk glowing under the orange sky. Mike, you're escalating something simple, he said. Just cooperate. You're making this harder on yourself. You already did, I told him. Later that night, I wrote everything down, times, quotes, posture. Carla read my notes while stirring her coffee. They crossed trespass line. Don't call them again. Call Denton PD next time. I did one better. I sent an open records request to the city police, asking for any reports filed by our HOA within the past 180 days. Took me 10 minutes online. 3 days later, I got a response. 0. Not one legitimate complaint had ever been filed, which meant their security checks were just theatrics. Are you firmly anti-HOA? If you've ever faced one, drop a quick tactic you use to fight back. Neighbors read these to learn how to stand up. And if not, HOA board members lurk these threads. Leave your message for them here. When the next board meeting arrived, room B smelled like toner and burned coffee. Kent sat at the head table, tapping his pen. His vice president, Raina, read off the violation log. My name came up 3 times, lighting noise, non-approved recording devices. Mr. Randall, she said, our security team reported non-cooperation. Your security team, I said, doesn't exist. Their registration expired August 2023. I slid a copy of the public record across the table. You renewed it with ghost signatures. I verified those names. 2 moved to Florida. Kent's jaw twitched. You're misunderstanding administrative continuity. Administrative continuity doesn't sign digital leases, I said. Behind me, murmurs rippled. Hal cleared his throat. Is that true? Kent gavelled. Order. This is not discovery court. No, I said, standing. It's a homeowners meeting. And per your bylaws, any member can motion for an audit with a simple majority. I counted heads. 11 present, 7 hands raised. Majority. Motion carried. That night, the HOA email list lit up. Ken called me disruptive, accused me of endangering property values. But public sentiment flipped fast. The fake badges had spooked everyone. I knew Kent wouldn't back off quietly. He'd try to retaliate before the audit day hit. And he did. 2 days later, I got 3 citations in 1 envelope. Mailbox paint chipped, $75. Lawn overgrowth, $125. And unauthorized recording device visible from street, $200. They even took a photo of my camera mounted under the eaves. Carla laughed when she saw the picture. They use flash, she said. The reflection shows Kent's shirt logo. Proof in pixels. I printed it, dated it, filed it. Evidence pile growing heavier by the hour. Microcliff came that Friday night, 11:42 p.m. A soft metallic sound at my side gate. I turned on the floodlight, just caught a shadow ducking behind the fence. Next morning, a folded notice on my porch. Final warning. Cease recording HOA personnel. Printed on HOA letterhead, but unsigned. Hal pointed to the watermark. That's the old template, he said. They switched printers last quarter. This came from someone's home. Meaning? Ken had gone rogue. The audit vote was scheduled for the 28th. 12 days. I'd need proof of impersonation before then, or they'd bear it under member disputes. I opened my binder, flipped it back, and started drafting a letter to their insurer. It was time to make this official. The letter to the insurer took 6 drafts. I printed each on heavyweight paper, made sure the phrasing walked that line between calm and lethal. To the underwriting department of Summit Fidelity, I wrote, please confirm active coverage of vehicle VIN ending 3397, registered under Maple Ridge HOA. Evidence suggests unauthorized usage beyond the policy's enforcement scope. Then, in a separate paragraph, failure to respond within 10 business days will be construed as waiver of coverage acknowledgement per Texas Insurance Code Section 541.060. 10 days was a countdown they couldn't ignore. I mailed it certified, return receipt requested. Watching that green slip vanish through the post office slot felt like cocking back a spring-loaded trap. Carla smiled when I told her. paper cuts deeper than any lawyer's tongue, she said. Hal brewed his usual dark roast and printed a parcel map off the county site. See this? He said, pointing to a shaded strip near the HOA's gate. Easement's been misfiled since 2014. That strip legally belongs to the city utility, meaning every security checkpoint. The HOA man stood on land that wasn't theirs. Knowledge nugget number 1. Again, I reminded myself property rights supersede HOA rules if the land is municipal utility. Held. Trespass applies even to board members. A day later, Summit Fidelity's risk manager called me. Soft-spoken woman named Teresa. Mr. Randall, I've reviewed your submission, she said. If the HOA contracted unlicensed personnel, that nullifies Section 9A of their liability coverage. We'll begin a review immediately. That was the quiet beginning of their undoing. Late one night, scrolling HOA minutes from previous years, I found a line item. Renewal of auxiliary enforcement agreement. Approved 3-2 vote. No record of who signed the renewal. No public posting. I cross-referenced the timestamp with the Secretary of State's filings. One of the supposed signers, a woman named Lisa Torres, had resigned the board a week prior. Her email address still worked. She replied within hours. I never approved that renewal. Kent forged my DocuSign. He said it was for a landscaping bid. That was the nail. I forwarded her affidavit to Teresa at Summit Fidelity. Now the HOA's insurance clock was ticking. The retaliation came fast. A so-called emergency inspection while I was at work. My Ring camera caught Kent's SUV pulling into my driveway. The 2 fake cops got out, one carrying a clipboard. They rattled the doorknob, took photos, and left a bright pink notice of noncompliance tucked in my handle. Emergency lighting infraction persists. HOA reserves right to repair and bill homeowner. Repair? They meant enter. Fines jumped again, $300, then $450. I paid none of them, documented all. Late that night, I sat in my garage surrounded by paper, the smell of toner and old dust mixing with the Texas humidity. My wife, Lauren, came out, rubbed her eyes. You're not sleeping, she said. They're trying to bleed us. I said, but they forgot my job is paperwork. Then kill them with it, she said softly. By the next morning, I compiled a packet, city permit, insurer notice, Lisa's email affidavit, and labeled it Exhibit A. The binder was now 3 inches thick. I stopped by the police department that afternoon. The duty officer, Sergeant Hollis, looked through the photos and whistled. Those badges are fake as a $3 bill, he said. We've had complaints, but no one brought proof until now. He took copies, filed an incident report under case hashtag 24-3317. Don't expect fireworks overnight, he warned. But you just started a paper trail they can't erase. I drove home lighter. The sun dipped behind the oaks, and for the first time in weeks, the porch light felt like protection, not defiance. Still, part of me knew Kent would double down before the audit. He had 11 days left on that insurance policy. Fines would keep coming, harassment too, but somewhere in those next few days lay my first real advantage. Debate time. Policy versus property. How far should an HOA control what sits on your porch, your paint, your light fixtures? Where's the line? Drop your take below. That night, I received an anonymous envelope with no return address. Inside, a single photocopy, the HOA's 2014 land survey with one word circled in red pen, easement. No note, no signature. Just that word. Hal saw it and grinned. Looks like someone else wants Kent gone, he said. And I realized the neighborhood was turning. The envelope changed everything. I took that single page and held it under the desk lamp, tracing the faded survey lines like veins under skin. The red circle bled slightly through the cheap paper. Whoever sent it knew exactly what I needed. Proof that the HOA's authority stopped 3 feet before my fence line. The next morning, I went straight to the county recorder's office. The clerk, a woman named Jan with cat-eye glasses, found the original easement deed within minutes. It was handwritten in blue ink, dated June 1998. Recorded to the City of Denton Utilities, she said. Meaning, your HOA can't regulate anything past that boundary. Can I get a certified copy? $1 per page, she said, sliding the stamp across the counter. The thunk of that seal hitting paper sounded like a gunshot muffled by justice. Knowledge nugget number 2. Under Texas Property Code Section 209.006, an HOA cannot enforce any covenant on property it does not own, lease, or maintain. Doing so constitutes color of authority. That means Kent's security enforcement was already a legal mirage. By the weekend, the whole community hummed with rumor. Someone leaked Kent's fake signature scandal from Lisa's affidavit. The HOA Facebook group turned into open rebellion. Neighbors demanding records, shouting for resignations. Kent shut off comments. The countdown to May 28th, audit day, hung over everything like Texas humidity. 11 days. He started sending community alerts about property risks and hostile misinformation. I printed everyone. Each email felt like another rope he was tying around his own neck. Hal, Evident Engineer, began drafting a visual timeline of every violation, fake citation, and trespass report. We'll hang them with precision, he said, sipping his thermos coffee. Meanwhile, I kept digging through land records. Buried in an appendix of a 30-year-old covenant was something almost absurd, a clause granting right of reversion to any utility parcel if maintenance lapses exceed 180 days. The HOA hadn't touched that stretch of land in 3 years. I stared at the clause for a long minute, heartbeat sinking with the ceiling fan. If the city hadn't maintained it either, then ownership reverted automatically to the nearest parcel owner. That was me. Reversal number 1 wasn't official yet, but it was breathing. I didn't tell anyone, not even Hal. The power of a quiet weapon is surprise. That Monday, another inspection notice came. Same fake letterhead, same threat. Carla called furious. They're targeting you because they know you've got something, she said. I just smiled. Let them. Midweek, Ken called an emergency session for board members only. No residents. But one of the newer members, Ravi, texted me from the parking lot. They're panicking, he wrote. Insurer asked for the security roster. Ken can't produce licenses. He's saying you fabricated docs. I replied with a photo of the certified easement copy, the county seal gleaming under light. Ravi just sent back, damn. Halfway through that week, I filed a small public notice in the Denton Record Chronicle. Application for title correction. Utility Parcel 4B, 122, 48 linear feet. It cost me $46. The notice itself meant nothing yet, but Kent would see it. And he did. At 8:17 p.m., I got an email. Cease all hostile filings. You're exposing yourself to civil liability. I replied with one sentence. See you on the 28th. The next morning, 2 more fines appeared. Yard debris accumulation and failure to remove unauthorized signage. They'd photographed my mailbox flag. That night, I sat in my living room, flipping through documents until Lauren placed her hand on my shoulder. What happens when you win? She asked. When, not if, that faith carried weight. Then we make sure no one else has to go through this again, I said. She smiled faintly. Good, because I'm tired of sleeping with the lights on. The next evening, I saw a black SUV idling near Carla's driveway. It rolled off as soon as I stepped out. They were trying intimidation now. Cheap, desperate theater. Debate time. Fines versus fairness. $250, $500, $1,000 a pop. Are they justice or revenue schemes? How much would you tolerate before fighting back? The morning of the 25th, 3 days before the audit, a courier arrived with a padded envelope. Inside was a notarized notice from Summit Fidelity. Effective May 31st, 11:59 p.m., all enforcement liability coverage for Maple Ridge HOA shall terminate pending investigation. The letter was addressed to Kent, but somehow it found me first. I tucked it into my binder and slid a new tab on the spine. Leverage. Kent must have felt the walls closing because by the 26th, he turned up the heat. I woke to the thud of envelopes against my door. 6 new citations, all dated the same day. Improper flag display. Gutter discoloration. Mailbox height deviation exceeds standard by 1.75 inches. He'd measured it, probably with the same tape he used to stretch his ego. Lauren saw the stack and just shook her head. "He's begging for a fight," she said. "He's getting one," I replied, dropping the papers into a binder like bullets into a magazine. The HOA Facebook page lit up again when Carla posted a screenshot of that insurance cancellation letter. Within hours, half the comments were neighbors threatening to withhold dues. Kent deleted the thread, but screenshots move fast in authority. That afternoon, I caught another SUV, different plate this time, parked across the street. One guy stayed behind the wheel. Another pretended to take pictures of lawns. I stepped out with my phone up. "Smile for your open records request," I said loudly enough for the mic. They left within 30 seconds. Still, I won't lie, it got under my skin. Lauren caught me double-checking locks at midnight. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm fine. Just tired of them pretending this is about lights," I said. "It's about control." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Then take it back." I was planning to. Knowledge nugget number 3. Selective enforcement invalidates HOA penalties under Civil Practice Section 212.001. If an HOA ignores one violation but punishes another, fines collapse in court. I started documenting other violations around the block. Mailboxes, unpainted shutters, lights of every wattage. Within 2 days, I had 34 examples. I built a spreadsheet labeled Unequal Enforcement Log. Every cell a nail for Kent's coffin. By the 27th, the whole neighborhood was a whisper network. People slipped me documents, emails, fines, inspection sheets. A quiet rebellion through paperwork. That night, I'll stop by with something new. A USB drive. Pulled it from the public file cache before they scrubbed it, he said. "It's a draft audit report from last year." I plugged it in. The screen filled with spreadsheet columns, liability exposures, unresolved complaints, pending insurance reviews. One tab labeled off-record enforcement. Dozens of entries under discretionary visits, no permits, no authorizations. "How?" I said slowly. "They've been running a parallel security log." He nodded. 2 years. They've logged over 70 visits. None reported at Denton PD. The realization hit like cold water. The fake cops weren't rogue. They were procedure. The next day was May 28th. Audit day. I dressed like I was in a court. Press shirt, navy jacket, binder under one arm. Lauren kissed my cheek at the door. "Bring the neighborhood back," she said. Room B was packed. Standing room only. Kent wore his usual smugness like a badge, gavel poised. "Let's proceed," he said. He didn't expect half the chairs to be filled by residents holding printed receipts, phone recordings, copies of the insurer letter. Rayner read off the agenda. First item, review of member audit request. I stood, motion to include Exhibit A through D, records of unauthorized enforcement actions, insurance lapse, and expired permits. Kent's smirk froze. "Those are confidential. Public filings aren't confidential." I said, laying the binder on the table so hard the metal rings clapped. "This association has exceeded its authority and engaged in impersonation of law enforcement. All documented." The crowd buzzed. Someone shouted, "Let him speak." Kent slammed the gavel. "Out of order." Carla raised her phone. "I'm recording," she said. "Texas one-party consent law. This is public meeting space." The gavel cracked again, but didn't silence the room. Outside, through the glass wall, a police cruiser pulled up. My chest tightened, but I hadn't called them. Sergeant Hollis stepped inside, uniform crisp, badge gleaming. "Afternoon, folks," he said evenly. "We received multiple complaints about unauthorized police impersonation. Just here to observe for now." Kent's face drained of color. Microcliff, the air so thick it almost hummed. Debate time, privacy versus surveillance. Should cameras and patrols be considered safety measures or harassment tools? Where's the legal boundary? I met Hollis's eyes and nodded slightly. "Sergeant, you might want to stay a bit," I said. "Things are about to get interesting." Because buried inside my binder under a flap labeled deed corrections was a notarized confirmation that the HOA's prize gate road, their entire control point, wasn't theirs anymore, and they were about to find out. Hollis took a seat in the back, arms crossed, body language neutral, but his eyes scanning every move. Ken tried to reassert control, tapping his gavel like it was a magic wand that could undo consequence. "Mr. Randall, unless you're a licensed attorney, you can't present legal exhibits," he said, his voice wobbling around the edges. "I don't need to be an attorney," I replied evenly. "I'm a property owner. That makes me a principal party to every document this board files." I flipped open the binder. "And this," I tapped the certified page with its blue ribbon, "is the reason you're finished." He laughed brittle. "That's not how it works, Mike." "Oh, it's exactly how it works," I said, sliding the paper forward. "This is the original 1998 easement deed. It reverted to the nearest property owner after 180 days of non-maintenance. That owner is me." The room went still. "What does that mean?" someone whispered. "It means," I said, "the HOA's gate road and checkpoint sit on land I now own. You've been trespassing every time your so-called enforcement team parked there." Hollis leaned forward slightly. "You have that deed recorded?" "County stamps right there." Kent's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Raina muttered, "Oh my God." Hal couldn't hide his grin. "Told you paperwork would do it." Knowledge nugget number 4. Property reversion clauses in old utility easements remain valid unless explicitly nullified by a later deed or maintenance record. Few HOAs bother to check that deep. I wasn't finished. "I'm offering the association access under a temporary license," I said, "but only until you meet compliance standards and complete the pending audit. After that, the gate closes until further notice." Kent slammed the gavel so hard the head cracked. "You can't shut down a community entrance." "I'm not," I said calmly. "I'm shutting down your access road. The city easement still allows emergency vehicles. Everyone else can use the public lane. This is a lawful notice." Hollis stepped to the front, voice measured. "He's right. If the record reflects reversion, his property rights supersede HOA jurisdiction. I'd advise the board to proceed carefully." The crowd erupted, gasps, whispers, phone snapping photos. Carla leaned over to me. "You just flipped the whole damn board." Reversal number 1 had landed. Kent's composure finally cracked. "You don't understand what you've started," he hissed. "No," I said, "you don't understand what you ended." Ravi rose from the board's table. "I moved to suspend all enforcement actions pending external audit. Seconded immediately. Vote carried 9-1. Kent was the one. The meeting adjourned in chaos. Hollis stayed behind, taking notes, exchanging quiet words with me. "I'll file a supplemental report," he said. "Might take a few weeks, but we'll dig." Outside, the night air felt electric, humid, metallic, alive. The community center lights buzzed like insects. I stood by my car, watching Kent pace near the curb. Phone pressed his ear. I knew that look. Desperation pretending to be command. Hal clapped me on the shoulder. "What now?" "Now we let the dominoes fall." I said, "Insurance regulators, city compliance, they'll do the rest." But in the quiet after adrenaline fades, fear creeps back. Around midnight, a small thud at my door. I open it to find an unmarked envelope. Inside, a photo of my house with the words, "You made a mistake," scribbled across the bottom in Sharpie. Lauren saw it over my shoulder. "That's him." "Maybe," I said. "Maybe someone who still thinks he's the law." I sealed the photo in plastic, logged the time, 12:07 a.m., and added it to binder. The spine was starting to split under its own weight. The next morning, Hollis emailed. "We're pulling badge numbers. Expect follow-up soon." The leverage was locked, and the countdown to collapse had officially started. Debate time, kids versus aesthetics. When HOAs crack down on noise or toys in yards, is it about community standards or selective bias? Where's the human line? I looked at the gate from my porch that evening. For the first time, the lights were off. Their SUV was gone. The silence felt like a truce, Temporary, uneasy, but mine. Tomorrow, I'd file the formal title correction. And then Kent would learn what happens when paper outruns intimidation. By Friday morning, the gate chain hung loose, a symbol of surrender disguised as maintenance. I could almost smell the fear in the HOA emails. Kent's tone shifted from commanding to pleading. "We request temporary negotiation regarding parcel access," he wrote. The words temporary negotiation were music. It meant they finally understood leverage. Lauren poured coffee and handed me her phone. "Local news picked it up," she said. A headline blinked on her screen. "Homeowner claims HOA used fake police. Investigation underway." The story quoted the police report number. Case 24, the 3317. Hollis must have gone public. The article ended with, "Board president unavailable for comment." Rayner resigned the next day. 2 more board members followed. That night, I got a call from Teresa at Summit Fidelity. "Mr. Randall," she said, "our audit confirms policy breach. We'll be issuing a cease and desist notice to Maple Ridge HOA for unauthorized enforcement. Expect delivery by Monday." "Thank you," I said. Try not to sound too relieved. "Don't thank me," she replied. "Thank your binder. It's better organized than most claims we see." The next HOA meeting was called under emergency terms again, but this time it wasn't behind closed doors. The notice read, "Open session, discussion of compliance resolution." I arrived early. The parking lot was full. Even neighbors who never care about HOA politics came, drawn by rumor and justice. Carla handed out copies of the article. Hal set up a projector showing the easement deed blown up to 6 feet wide. Kent walked in late, red-eyed, his voice brittle. "This circus has gone too far," he said. "The board's been harassed, and we'll pursue defamation claims." "You won't," I said, "because defamation requires falsity. Everything here is verified." Hollis entered a few minutes later, uniform crisp, carrying a manila folder. "Evening," he said. "Just to clarify for the record, impersonating an officer is now confirmed. 2 individuals under contract to the HOA have been charged under Penal Code 37.12. Their statements implicate higher direction. Investigations active." Gasps rippled across the room. Kent's face drained again. He pointed at me, voice cracking. "You orchestrated this. You turned everyone against me." I looked around the room, at Carla, at Hal, at the tired faces of neighbors who just wanted peace. "No, Kent," I said quietly. "You did that when you forgot this place belongs to people, not paperwork." The silence was sharp enough to cut. "Debate time, developer ties, and conflicts. What should the penalty be when HOA officers exploit their roles for personal deals? How do you restore trust after that?" Hollis laid the folder on the table. "We're recommending the city ombuds initiate administrative review. There will be hearings, maybe restitution orders." Ken tried to gather the papers, but his hands shook too much. Hal clicked the projector off. "You could end this right now," he said to Kent. "Step down, let the community rebuild." Kent exhaled a long, uneven breath. "You think you're heroes?" "No," I said. "Just homeowners with printers." The crowd laughed softly. Release, not mockery. Then came the twist I hadn't expected. Hollis turned to me. "Mr. Randall, since you hold deed authority over the gate parcel, you're legally empowered to regulate access. We'd appreciate your cooperation to maintain emergency routes until the review concludes." A ripple of approval swept the room. Reversal number 2 wasn't a secret this time. It was public, on the record, witnessed by half the neighborhood and a police sergeant. I wasn't just fighting the HOA anymore. I was setting the terms of its rebirth. Ken stood there, shoulders sagging, gavel limp in his hand. "You'll regret this," he muttered, though even he didn't sound convinced. I closed the binder with a clean metallic snap. "No," I said, "I'll just file it." The Monday after that meeting, the cease and desist letter from Summit Fidelity hit the HOA inboxes like a thunderclap. "Effective immediately," it read. "All enforcement actions are suspended pending investigation and policy review." Ken's name appeared 3 times in bold within the Personnel of Concern section. I printed a copy for my binder, slid it under a new tab, Aftermath. By noon, the gate stood wide open. No fake cops, no SUVs, no flashlights skimming over driveways. Just quiet, the kind of quiet that feels earned. Ravi emailed the community list. Interim board forming. We need volunteers for compliance reform. Carla nominated herself immediately. How to? When they asked if I'd join, I said yes, but only on one condition. Every meeting live-streamed, every record open. No more closed doors. The first reform session happened under fluorescent lights that flickered like nervous eyelids. 30 homeowners packed into the room with notebooks and coffee thermoses. We drafted term limits, recall rights, and a community review panel made up of residents over 60. We even set a fixed fine cap, $150 max. No stacked penalties without mediation. Lauren sat in the back, smiling. "You actually did it," she said afterward. "Not yet," I told her. "We still have to pass it." The vote came a week later. 91 households participated, 72% in favor. Enough to ratify the charter amendment. The new bylaws were recorded at 3:46 p.m. on June 12th, stamped and notarized. Knowledge nugget number 5. In Texas, a bylaw amendment becomes enforceable upon filing and notice, not at meeting adjournment. So time stamps matter. That detail alone saved us from Kent's last-minute legal stall. He tried to sue, briefly. The judge tossed it in preliminary review, citing self-inflicted governance failure. Hal bought donuts for the next community cleanup. Carla painted the old HOA enforcement office sign white and stenciled a new phrase in black letters. Community office, by the neighbors for the neighbors. Debate time, recording rights. Should residents be allowed to film every HOA meeting for accountability, or is privacy still sacred when public funds are involved? Drop your take. This one shapes policy everywhere. A week later, a small envelope arrived from the city ombudsman's office. Inside, a one-page consent decree. Maple Ridge HOA formally admitted improper enforcement practices, agreed to compliance audits for 5 years, and pledged transparency reforms. Kent's signature looked faint, almost like he'd pressed too lightly, as if reluctant to leave a mark. That night, I walked out to the gate. The air smelled like rain and asphalt. The old security authorized personnel only sign had been removed. Someone, probably Carla, had hung a small tin placard that said "Welcome home" instead. Lauren joined me on the porch, 2 mugs of coffee steaming between us. "So," she said, "what happens now?" "We rebuild," I said. "Fair rules, open books, real community." She nodded. "You ever think you'd be the HOA guy?" I laughed. "Never. But I'll be the kind that answers his own door. If you believe I fought the right way and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend. Subscribe so the next story reaches you first. As responsible citizens, share this so others learn and get inspired. It's on us to keep this light burning. 2 months later, a reporter emailed me a link to a small news brief. Maple Ridge HOA completes reforms. First transparency vote in county history. I printed it, slipped it into the last sleeve of the binder. Then I wrote 3 words on the inside cover with a ballpoint pen. They learned eventually. I closed it, locked it away in the fireproof box behind my water heater. The same place it all started. A porch light flicked on across the street, steady and bright, cutting through the humid Texas dusk. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel watched.